So what I said, I would talk a little bit about the person inside ourselves. And let's go a little bit into the history of our lives to start with. You know, we're all born. And being born and being a baby, in the first years of our lives, we don't really have a conscious or awareness of a separate I. We don't relate to ourselves as having a separate I. We are aware that we have a separate body. And that we are perceiving, are aware of what's happening. But we're not aware even that we have a different perspective on life as others. That's only much, much later that we realize that. In the beginning of our lives, we kind of think that everybody has the same perspective and the same perception. So basically, what we are thinking or what we are experiencing, that there is one awareness, there is one perception, there is one consciousness. And then, so around our second and a half year, we invent the I. We start to say I. I as a separate entity. And it's important if you could regress back to that moment, and then if you can, we become aware, I'm very precise in how I'm saying it, of the I. We invent the I. So we say, I want to have a cookie. Instead of, haha, works very good. I want to have a cookie works in the beginning also very good, because everybody is so delighted that you say I. In the beginning. If you say I too much later on, or too many times, then you're an egoist or egocentric. It's all about you, isn't it? So this I, we're able, to notice this, to see this. We're able to this I who wants a cookie, we identify with it and we don't identify with it. It's a language to point out that this person, this one, wants a cookie. But we see the I. We are aware of the I. We are not the I yet. It's giving form in language to something. And then, when we grow up, we become aware of some of our behaviors and the behaviors of people around us. And we are learning, so we copy behaviors. And we're really dependent on affirmation of authorities around ourselves. We're really dependent in how to learn to speak, how to learn to behave, how to give form to yourself. And some children really experiment with this. They kind of say crazy things and they see if it's successful or not. Or they pick up a word which is better not to use. And they use this word and everybody is a little bit shocked, and then kind of they use it again. This is how we learn. You use it again. Are they really shocked? What's the consequence of this if I use this word? And this is also how we kind of learn from our environment about good and bad. So if something is affirmed or recognized, it's good. And that's very basic, it's productive. If you say a word and somebody else understands it, it's good. If you have a certain attitude and it's successful, it's good. It works. It's all about giving form to communicate. If something is bad, and you understand why it's bad, it's also okay. Because this doesn't work. Or if I want this effect, it works very well. If I want to make my mother angry, I should do this. Then she gets really pissed off. That works. And children have the tendency to repeat this a few times to kind of see if it's consistent, if it really works. So they climb on the cupboard and mommy kind of, starts to shake and said, "Get up!" And then you do it a few times to be sure. Never do this again. You try it again. At least some children do. And this is how we learn. And this is how we slowly build up a person inside ourselves. A person is basically what you could say is a bag full of language and behaviors, ways to give form. So a lot of this person is based on our parents. It's based on behaviors of our parents we copy. This is how you do it. The way daddy is treating mommy is the way you treat women. That's how females are treated. The way mommy is treating daddy is the way how males are treated. So in the beginning, we totally copy that. And when we grow up, we get more kind of, precise in it. And then we say, okay, I don't like this way, I do it in a different way. This is not really good. But in the beginning, you see often children, if the father is treating the mother in a certain way, the children kind of have a tendency to do the same. So if the father says, "Where is my coffee?" the child will say, "Where is my choco?" And if the mother is upset, they will change it. Because the choco is not coming, it's not productive. "Could I have a choco, please, Mom?" That's how we learn, how we develop. Also, what's happening in our lives is that we bring forward behavior based on our emotions, feelings, which is not affirmed as being good. It's affirmed as being bad. This is not okay. This is not allowed. This is wrong. And sometimes this is told us, don't behave like this. If you behave like this, you never get a husband. So you should change. you should.
I was told to not win any games if there were boys there, because they already didn't like me because I was so smart.
Exactly.
And if I won the games, I'd never get a husband. Do you believe it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you win the game?
No, there was no danger in that. I'm a cheerleader, not an athlete.
Basically, you know, if you're too smart as a girl, you don't get a man.
Get it, yeah.
Forget about it. So, you know, when we talk about it, we start to laugh. You know, and we think, oh my God, this is quite awful. But you have to understand that we take authority, which are our teachers, as young persons, quite literally. We really take it as a truth. This is how it works. We are learning how it works in this world. So, as a girl, you shouldn't be too smart. In this example. That's how it works. You know, you're more successful as a dumb blonde as... These are horrible things, but deep beliefs. Deep beliefs which are there already for generations. And part of the war between male and female. And part of building a person, this is also how we learn to build a person. Basically the message is, if you're smarter as your daddy, then your daddy will be a nobody. And we don't want him to be a nobody, do we? So we have to affirm daddy all the time that he's smarter and stronger and better, so that he feels that he is somebody. He has some right to exist. And this is slowly where I want to move to, because the emphasis is so much on the form we take. On the form we kind of have to support another person in. We have to support our parents in their form. You cannot criticize Ima, you cannot criticize your mother. You know, if you criticize your mother, she falls apart. She's not a good mother anymore. You cannot say no. You recognize what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. So we learn kind of, you know, to really not only build our own person, but also to support and try to hold our parents and the people around them in a kind of a person state. And at the same time, some things are good and some things are bad. So we move in the deep learning of polarity in a universe which moves through polarity. And in this we identify, as is taught to us, very strongly with the person. This is what we are, this is who we are. But if you really understand, it's just a bag of language and behaviors. And some of these behaviors are good and some of these behaviors are bad. So we don't want the bad behaviors, because if we're behaving bad, we get rejected. And we have the feeling, if we get rejected, that we have no right to exist. We're not okay. You recognize what I'm talking about? And in this whole process, we start to identify more and more and more with this bag, with these tools. This is what we are. It's also told to us, you are really a bad boy. Because you did this and this and this and this and this. And you look into it and we say, okay, this and this and this and this is bad. It's not good. Better not be there. So we repress it or suppress it. It's not allowed. In reality, it's just a form we're giving in that moment. We are experiencing, we are experimenting. And then on the way, what we also learn is that, when you're once a thief, you're always a thief. We have to hold on to a certain form. It has to be structural, it has to be the same. Otherwise, people get upset. You cannot say one day that your favorite food is ice cream and the next day that it's steak. That's confusing. It has to be a little bit the same. If you're a good girl, this behavior has to come out all the time, because then you're a good girl. And that's what you are. So we identify with it. When we grow older and older, we less and less experiment. We more and more kind of know it. We know the form which is right. And this is what we are, and this is how we behave, and that's what we do. So, what I try to kind of bring forward is that this person is made up also of building stones which are good and bad. So the whole person is moving in good and bad. Or good or bad. And we start to work very, very hard to enlarge the good and to repress the bad. And in this we forget that it's only a form. We identify more and more and more with it. But it's only a form. It's something we build ourselves. It's something which is a reflection of our learning processes. So then we become a nurse, and in becoming a nurse or a judge or whatever, we identify with how the person has to be a nurse, or how the person has to be a judge, or how the person has to be a carpenter. So we identify with being a carpenter, being a nurse. This is what we are. So if you ask a person, what are you? I'm a nurse. I'm a nurse practitioner. That's what I am. Or I'm a carpenter. There's not many people who say, I right now work as a carpenter. Or I express myself as a nurse. Which is much more true. If you say, I express myself as a nurse, there is a separation between the nurse and you. If you say, I am a nurse, the separation is almost gone. You're retired.
I resonate with that. I never felt that it was true to say, I am a nurse.
Exactly. Yeah, some people have this feeling, this is not defining me.
Yeah.
This is what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
But we try very hard to become what we have to be.
Mm-hmm.
And this is already fake, to become what we have to be. A good husband. So what the heck is a good husband? Different from my father. A good wife. What is a good wife? Different from your mother. So we take examples. We take examples from television, from movies, from our neighbors, from our parents. And again, it's all about form. I kind of talk a little bit in circles, but to kind of really, really to rub this in, this is all about giving form. So the question is, who is giving form? Who is the one who gives form? Are we the form, or are we the one who's giving form? And here we get a little bit messed up, because we give form and we identify with the form we give, and we say this is me, and then we suffer that how we give form is not perfect, because some people are not affirming this, some people are annoyed by it, or some people are rejecting us because the way we give form. So we are wrong. We are not right. We don't say, the way you give form right now is not that handy. Maybe you could do it in a different way. We say, you're a bastard. Never will trust you again. So, also in our language and the way we treat each other, we really pin people in their form. If you once did that, I never, never, never are going to trust you again. In its extremes. And we feel really deceived, we marry a guy who's interested in us, who's listening, who's talking to us, and after half a year, he goes fishing. Where is he? He doesn't listen anymore. And it seemed to be such an attentive and nice guy. But it tends to be an egoist. So the form we give, we have a tendency, or the form we see in another. When another person really does his best, we tend to take this as the person. This is what you are. It's not somebody really trying to please, because he's interested in you, or cares about you, or loves you, or want to be sure to gain your love, or whatever. And the moment he's got it, he's gone. Mine. It's not that interesting anymore, it's much more interesting kind of, to go to shops for a boat and, and look at it, fantasize, imagine about it, and the moment you buy the boat, you're so happy, but after a year you hardly use it anymore. It's normal. We all move like this. It's a learning process. You recognize what I'm talking about? Unless you really care about the boat and you're building it up, you're cleaning it, and that's something else. It's not about having to obtain, but a person wants to obtain, wants to get. Some people start a relationship because they can be proud to walk around with this person. It looks good on them. That's very much from the person. She looks so good on me. Everybody will be jealous, so I am somebody. And this is what we strive to be, to become somebody. This is very much in the news, this is very much in the, how do you say it, the VIP kind of stories we read. We want to become somebody. And then we think that somebody is somebody, and then a scandal comes forward. And then the somebody is bad. And secretly, we really, really enjoy the failing of the somebody. Because it makes us feel a little bit better about our own failure to be somebody. So, what is this somebody? That's a person who's perfect. It's a person who's communicating perfect, has the perfect attitude. It's all about form. It's not defining you at all. It's just defining how you give form. You recognize what I'm talking about? So when I ask the question, when you bring your attention to your nose, who is bringing this attention? What is bringing this attention? Where is this attention coming from? I'm referring to something which is not a person. Because we can be aware, conscious, perceive our own person. Like we can see our own hand. Are you your hand? Or is your hand a part of you? So if we are able to see something, it's not the deepest layer of ourselves. Do you understand that? So what is able to see? What's able to be aware or conscious of the person? So if we believe very deeply in the person and we are really in the struggle to become a good person, to become somebody, we really invested in that, there is a very strong identification with the person. And the person is very strongly in polarity. You or me. Either you are successful or I am successful. And of course we kind of from a personal level have learned the attitude when somebody else is more successful to say, very good, congratulations. Because this is what we learned is good behavior. So we are a generous person. We're a good person because we really like the others to be successful as well. And we can share. This is also how we learn to share. Yeah, there's a cake, we want the biggest piece of the cake, but then, we're an egoist, so we don't take the biggest piece of the cake. And if you can remember how difficult it is when your brother, your sister, or even worse, one of your friends gets the biggest piece of the cake. It's difficult. When you're very young, this is difficult. And it's not allowed to be difficult. But it's difficult. But we have to share. So we learn to repress that it's difficult, because that's not successful. And we learn to overcome it by kind of, offering the biggest piece to somebody else. Because then we are okay. We are a more successful person. And then when everybody is calm, we open the fridge and we revenge. Let me get some. You recognize what I'm talking about? This is creating stress. So basically when we look to our own person, this person is basically never good enough. And never really successful. it's always striving to come there, to come to a safe position. This person is totally around affirmation or rejection, acceptance or rejection. We always have the feeling that we have to become somebody. We never are somebody. It's in the future. When I am somebody, then. You recognize what I'm talking about?
It's also comes from this feeling that there's never enough.
Yeah.
Like you're making an assumption that everybody wants the biggest piece of the cake.
Yeah.
Or even some of the cake.
Yeah.
Some people might not even want any cake.
No.
But you can't. That doesn't occur to you.
No.
And so both you feel like you're not enough and you have to reach for it, and you also feel like there isn't enough for everybody.
Exactly.
Kind of both things.
Yeah. Yeah. That can be very much part of the person. Now I know how you're built. Oh yeah. So happily, we are not that. It's just a form. It's a form we learned through life. It's really only a form. It's not what we are. And if you really think about it, it's not what you are. So the more free you come from this form, the more there is freedom to give form. You understand? We are identified with a certain form. So the more free we become from the form we thrive to be, we want to be. We like to identify ourselves with, but at the same time we don't believe in it because we fail all the time. I am a very friendly guy. And then you find yourself shouting at somebody. That doesn't fit. So that's because of. I had to act like this because of the other. So I'm basically very friendly, but some people are so bad that they make me unfriendly. And this is so clearly reflecting how we learn to communicate. The other still has the authority. It's not that we're learning from the other anymore, but we get so identified that the other is defining us. He's in charge of us. He's controlling us. He's controlling the form which come forward from us. It's all trigger points. You recognize? And we believe in it. We really believe in it, and it's how we brought up with very little remarks. If you dress like this, you get into trouble. So you express in a certain way, and then you get into trouble. You recognize what I'm talking about? It's about the form. And the form is what you are, and the form will bring you into trouble or not into trouble. So the more free we become from the identification with the person with a certain form, the more we're able to express in different forms. If there is a little bit of a distance from the person and we're not totally in the contraction of the person, but we are more aware of this person which is absolutely able to find its own form inside ourselves. We're also to say, okay, I see this form coming up, but it's not really me, and I could express in a different way. We get more freedom. And we recognize inside ourselves forms which are there. We absolutely don't want to be, because also that exists inside ourselves. All forms are existing inside ourselves. So, the less we identify, the more freedom we find how to express ourselves. But that means that we have to identify with something else, not with the I. The I is just a form, it's a word, I. It's a separation. So when we go in deeper meditation, and partly meditation is about this, to kind of move into the depths of yourself, in which you move beyond the personal form, in which you move beyond this identification with this person. And so you move in silence. In silence there is no I. Or into stillness. In stillness there is not a separate person, especially in emptiness. So what Thich Nhat Hanh says, if you kind of move deeply into emptiness, emptiness is not empty, everything is there, except the separate, it's not separate, the separate self, he calls it. Everything is in emptiness except the separate self. It's where we move beyond the person. That's another way to describe the person, the separate self. So when we move beyond the person, we become aware that on a lot of different levels we really connected, we reactive to each other. When you get angry, you ask, how come that I get angry? But most of the times you get angry because, we feel the anger of another person, we start to move in the same kind of vibration, because this is what we do all the time, and then we express sometimes the anger of another person. And we are bad. All because of us. Your husband comes home totally loaded, and with a lot of irritation around himself, and you make a remark which is irritated, and then you get an explosion. Thank you for helping me to release. But I just give an example. You get and that's all because you were so irritated. But before he came in, you were whistling in the kitchen. How is that possible? What's happening here? We all recognize these situations. So we're all reactive to each other. I mean, we're less focused on this person and being somebody and what form to take, and if it's good or not good, if it's okay or not okay. We become more aware of what's happening around us and how we are part of the whole, how we are reactive. That makes it possible to be less reactive, to become more an individual. An individual is not a person. An individual is able to take responsibility for the form he takes.
you say that again?
An individual is able to take responsibility for the form he takes. A person can never take responsibility. It's always because of. You recognize what I'm talking about? It's built of because it's built on affirmation and rejection.
I need to leave early, I'll be back.
I know.
Thank you so much.
Could you repeat that last line? So the person is built on the affirmation, but the
Or
individual
rejection.
isn't.
No, the
So
individual
it's just
is
words.
taking responsibility. Because the individual is not his behavior. The person is the behavior. You see the difference? Sometimes we are the behavior and sometimes we are not the behavior. So when we are not the behavior, we are able to take responsibility. If we are the person, we cannot. We can do as if. I'm so sorry, yes, it's my fault, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. But it doesn't feel right. But it's better to kind of keep the peace. So I'm the wisest. It's all about I.
I know there's something wrong with the way I'm thinking about this, but it would seem that if you gave into this form or reacted and became angry or outrageous, but then recalled that that's not you, that's just a form.
Yeah,
There's a way of not taking responsibility, if that's an excuse, that was just a lapse. I'm really not that person. Do you know what I'm asking?
no, but you're not the person who's saying that's just a lapse either.
Yeah.
So what's closer to home is that you really, really feel regret when you hurt the other person. And you don't need to blame the other person saying that's because of you. You understand? We come to a deeper level of reality in which the difference between us and the other is not your enemy. The difference between you and the other is not so big. If you hurt the other, you hurt yourself.
There is no other.
There is no other, exactly. You understand? It brings a softness and a different way of communicating in which we don't need to defend anything from ourselves in a way. So when we get angry, it's not about another, it's our anger. We are touched in something. You understand? It's not because of you we don't need the revenge. A person needs to revenge. Because we need to revenge because all the time this person is in fear of death, it's dying. It can get distinguished. It can be kind of clear that this person is worth nothing. We all the time are fighting to exist. You understand? In the personhood. Because the person is never good enough. We're never arrived as a person. We want all the time to thrive to become somebody that everybody takes serious, everybody will affirm. We have to be taken serious. Come on, I am somebody. Take me serious. Do you know who I am? It comes out. And if you say yes, a person, that's not good enough. But it's true. I am this and that and that and that and that. I've got power. Or not. Or this and this and this happened to me. So I've got power as a victim. But when you look at it, it's all about separation. It's not about, in the depths, about togetherness or unity. It can look like it is about togetherness and unity. But in the depth, there is always a rat.
You'll always get found out.
When it's on the level of the person, it's about the separate self. It's about the separate self. When we believe too deeply in the separate self, we are very lonely. We don't feel acknowledged and understood, and we feel that we're not part of. We are moving into the whole movement of superior or inferior. We check around other persons around us if they like us or not like us. So I think you don't like me, so I don't like you. Because it's better kind of to be the first one to reject. Otherwise you get rejected. We're all the time kind of measuring. Is this person more important as me or less important as me? So if this person is more important, I should kind of bend a little bit, and if the person is less important, I can spit on his shoes. You recognize what I'm talking about? So where is the human factor? Where is the equality? Do we really believe that we are this? Where is the heart? So the question behind all of this is, who are you really? Where do you invest in? Do you invest in becoming somebody? Or, I cannot say being somebody. Because the moment we move into being, there is no person. There is no separation. If you're in nature and you move into being and you really enjoy the togetherness with nature, where is the person inside you? Where are you? It doesn't exist at that moment. You recognize what I'm talking about? There is not a separate self. There is not a person who has to become somebody or has to give a form. A form is just moving through you in being. You're not identified with it.
But we'll manifest here somehow.
What?
Well, if we just accept that there is no other and we're just the awareness that, and I don't mean just, that we are the awareness
Yeah.
that can perceive our foot or our nose
Yeah.
or someone else's foot or nose. But still, it's just an illusion that we're sitting here and have these forms of some sort? I mean...
No, it's just a form which is there. It's like saying, I am my finger. Are you your finger? Or is your finger a part of you? Are you a person? Or is personhood a part of you?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that all of this is an illusion. Right now, for us, as how we perceive it, it's reality. And you can talk about if it's an illusion or not, but it's not even interesting. For us, our togetherness right now, the experience we share, is a reality. And maybe it's a dream, and maybe it's not a dream. Is that important? It's only important to ask this in the moment that you have a difficulty with accepting the reality as it is right now. That moves you into personhood. You need to divide. If you're in being, you're not worried about if it's a reality or not.
I guess what I meant was, it seems that to move through life, we have to express ourselves somehow.
Yeah. Exactly.
And it'll be a form.
Exactly. So the question is not, shouldn't you express yourself, not give form to yourself? That's not the question. The question is, are you the form you give to yourself? You're not. So if you are the form, you're in trouble, I think. You suffer. If we identify with the form, we don't learn. If we identify with the form we give to somebody and we get criticism, we cannot accept the criticism because we are wrong. It's not that the form we gave was not that handy at that moment. You see the difference? So are you the form or not? Are you the person who's giving form or not? Who's part of the form? Or are you something else? So if you're something else, there's much more freedom to learn. There's much more freedom to give form in a different way. You understand? You know, there is this distance, then when you kind of act in a certain way, there is awareness that you say, okay, wow, this is exactly how my mother would have done it. You understand? That is freedom. Instead of, oh shit, I'm just like my mother. I should kill myself. That's an identification. We're talking about freedom. We're not talking about chucking away every form. Not at all. We need forms, and we need to refine the form. And the more we are free in the form, the more the form becomes refined and attuned. The more we're able to master form. To become a master of form means that you have the freedom. The freedom to see every form as relative. So every form can come forward. It's just a form. You know, you're not a carpenter who's only allowed to use a hammer. Because you are the hammer. You know, we're working together as carpenters, and you are the hammer, and I'm the saw. So I can only make this movement, and you can only make that movement. You can be the hammer and the saw. You understand? You can be a bird, a tree. It's forms. You can become a bastard. You can become a friend. It's all forms. And now it gets difficult, because if we become a friend, come into the form of friendship, you know, you have to take this serious. Because once a friend, you know, and if this form is changed in something else, you know, the form of friendship we really have to hold on to. Because otherwise we're not a loyal friend.
A lot of rules about friends.
A lot of rules about friends. Why? Because we're so afraid to get hurt, to get rejected, to be left alone. You understand? That is fear, basically, to deal with the experience of life. This is all the experience of life. We want this experience and not that experience. Real friendship is moving through you. It's not something you possess. It's something which kind of comes forwards, moves through you. It's not a form. Real love is not a form. Real love is not that you every morning make breakfast for your loved one. That's an expression of love. That's a form. Real love is maybe the drive behind that. But but often the drive behind it is the need to be loved or appreciated. You are a good husband. Real love gives you the forum to enjoy the happiness of the other. You really enjoy the happiness of the other. The forum wants the other only to be happy and is not allowed to be not happy. Because otherwise you failed as a mother. You see the differences, it looks like each other, but it is different. There is a difference. One is based in the person and it's all about me. And the other one is much more into togetherness. The person is much more out of it, to a point where the person just is out of it. It's not about you personally. So what happens when we let the person go? Immediately we move back to what always was there before we built a person in our childhood. We move into being. We move maybe into an expanded awareness, pure awareness, in freedom. We move into the depth of the beloved. So part of the work we do in inner growth is to get rid of this very deep addiction. It's like an addiction, a habit to be somebody. To move into the addiction that we think what we experience is defining us. I am so good because I experienced a golden Buddha in my aura. I am a golden Buddha. I am enlightened. I experience deep peace. So I am peace. I am a peaceful person because I feel peace all the time. You're not what you experience. Now it gets a little bit crazy if you experience to be Napoleon, which is possible to experience, or God, or Jesus Christ, or Buddha. Kind of, oof. You identify with that, or maybe you experienced how it is to be a criminal. We can experience that as well. So if we believe that we are the experience, we also move with our experience in a conditional way. This I am allowed to experience, this I don't want to experience. Because if I experience this lower part, the lower dimensions, the evil dimensions, whatever we put on it, then, I am not good, I'm evil. It's defining me, what I'm experiencing. It's just an experience. It's not what you are. What you are allows you maybe to experience almost everything. So it's kind of moving to the depths, not of that you are the experience, but you are the one who's able to experience. You're not what you create, but you are the one who's able to create. You're not the form, but you are the one who's able to give the form.